Hi, I'm Kelsey Zeiser. I'm a senior editor at Light Reading, and you're listening to the Light Reading podcast. And I am joined by.
Yeah, Dan Wagner with AT&T. I'm the director of technology in our network planning and engineering organization, and I have responsibility for GenAI use cases in network as well as a number of our data platforms.
Excellent. Welcome to the podcast, Dan. And I'm also joined by.
Mark Austin. I'm the VP of Data Science, AI, and Automation at AT&T, and we build the platforms that support all the GenAI use cases across AT&T, whether it's off our vendor platforms or stuff that we're doing ourselves. And in addition, we build a lot of use cases as well.
Mhm. Excellent. And who sat behind you? You've got
Oh,
there's somebody
that's a
else here.
character. That's a caricature of me. So our GenAI platform is called Ask AT&T. And that was a picture of me and the Ask AT&T band when we did a tour. And we produced a video, so that was somebody created a life-size mock-up there. And I don't know
Yeah,
if you can see it. It says, "I've seen a million use cases and I've rocked them all," is what it
I love
says.
it. Yeah, we were saying offline, you've made it when you've got a cardboard cutout of yourself. For those who are listening to audio only, Mark's got a cardboard cutout of him as a rock star with an awesome wig and
Yeah,
guitar.
yeah,
Um, but
life-size.
yeah, very cool. Um, all right, well, let's dive in. Dan or Mark, whoever wants to start first, wanted to kind of take a broader look back before we dial into, ask AT&T and more about what AT&T is doing in the AI space, and just talk a little bit about do you feel like AI is profitable yet, and what are some of the main business kind of use cases for AI that are emerging right now that can generate revenue for the industry at large and also for AT&T.
Maybe I could start, Dan, and then you can add on too. So if you go very broad AI, I mean, we've been doing AI for years, right? So we've been tackling fraud or understanding problems in the network, fixing them. We've been using, you might even argue, a flavor of AI to optimally route technicians, dispatch optimization, we call it. That's kind of the traditional AI, and of course, we do predicting churn and all sorts of stuff. I think the new stuff, of course, since November 2022, when ChatGPT and GenAI came available, has been kind of the new stuff. I'd say the last couple of years here, and that is what I think is it's a new tool in the toolbox, and there's a ton of new use cases that it unlocks, and we've been applying those, since then. And we call that Ask AT&T at AT&T, as you might imagine. And it's our secure endpoint for keeping all of our Gen AI secure. And we have lots of use cases on it. I think we have 71 Gen AI solutions in production, 100,000 employees on it. We're doing 4 billion tokens or words a day that are processing through it. I think we've done 400, close to 500,000 API calls there as well. And some of the top use cases in Gen AI is stuff like you might imagine. It helps the coders a lot. People that are writing code, fixing code, explaining code. That one is huge. We've also applied it in customer care. You don't need to summarize the end of a call manually anymore. I think we said our care agents are 33% faster in getting answers to information. And the one that I like is our first use case for Gen AI was back mid 2023. And I thought it was going to be something internal, but it was actually external. We went straight to the customer. And it was our chatbot on att.com. And it was a rules-based chatbot at the time. And it could only answer 60, maybe 70% of the questions. But we put Gen AI on top of that because we knew the answers were in the documents because it didn't code them up yet. And it automatically cut the amount of answers that it couldn't answer in half, literally in 2 weeks afterwards. So but we have a ton of use cases. So almost any department has the ask, ask HR, ask network, ask finance. So those are all of our RAG use cases, question and answer. But those are some of our favorite ones. And Dan's got a ton kind of over on the network side. You might want to mention a few favorites there too.
Yeah, like Mark said, we've been doing AI for a long, long time, especially in our network management and monitoring and operations space. But Gen AI unlocked for us, literally over 100 new use cases in the past 18 months. Whether we're doing extraction of contract terms for many of the hundreds of different vendors or contracts that we have with third parties, to just simple question answering, right, on any number of things that are happening within the network. One of the new things is being able to ask questions of data, right, which we find extremely helpful. We've done things such as we understand the inventory of holes that we have in the network and our relationship with our third-party suppliers in that space, and even created some of our own domain models in the network management space.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really interesting. And Mark, wanted to ask you a little bit more about what is Ask AT&T, and more about that chatbot's interesting because I know personally I've had instances. I'm sure everyone has where you're asking a chatbot questions and you get frustrated, and I just say representative as many times until it syncs me up
Yeah,
with the person. So
yeah,
maybe you can talk a little bit more about what the improvements were there.
yeah. So yeah, let me start off with reviewing Ask ATT. So Ask ATT is our private and secure place that you can share AT&T documents, code, and we have, since we started on Azure, we were fortunate since OpenAI was first to market on kind of the large scale stuff. We have a private and secure endpoint. So it's zero data retention. It's not shared with OpenAI. It's not shared with Microsoft. It's all AT&T. So we don't need to worry about stuff leaking out per se, which was a real problem back in the beginning. In fact, the reason we did that is we said this is going to be a bit of a problem because the coders found a ton of use of it. They were you could see them. They wanted to go out there. They wanted to kind of explain their code and stuff. And sure enough, it didn't happen to us, but we saw other companies had some leaks, as you saw. So that's
Mhm.
where we started. But it's not just Azure OpenAI. Of course, large language models. There's a lot of them out there. So we have all the favorite open source ones. We have the Llamas, the Mistrals, and you name it. So we have our own internal hosted ones, as well as the OpenAI Azure endpoint. So that's the starting point. But when we first launched it, it didn't really live up to the name when we started. It didn't live up to Ask ATT. So you'd ask about AT&T. You ask it, how many days off do I have left in the year? It didn't know that. So it didn't really know about AT&T. It didn't know about us. But we've since been teaching it about AT&T. So that's us loading the documents and loading in the data sources and stuff like that. So that's where we put it in the vector store, and then you do the question and answer. You get the answers you want there. Now, the interesting thing, you talk about the chatbot. The frustrating thing, you try to get the answer. People, that's the 40% or whatever it couldn't answer before, and it's because it wasn't taught before. Remember, it was the old days. It was hand programmed what the answers would be for something. Now you give it the documents, and since you've loaded that in Ask AT&T, it kind of knows the answer if it's in the document, and that's where it kind of, the answers it couldn't answer were cut in half. The interesting thing is it's really natural too, and it's really interesting. You read some of these conversations, even though we're totally upfront that you're talking to AI, the customer forgets and they start, talking about it. In the end, they, if they say, "Hey, this is the answer to something," they go, "Oh, I apologize. You told me that a year ago," but they're talking to AI, right? And that it's so natural they just totally forget. But it's really good quality wise, and of course they're getting the answers as well.
One of the great things Mark's team has done is provided us with tools to be able to leverage those capabilities for each of our users as well. So Ask Docs, where we can load our own docs, and ask questions of it, and which really comes in helpful in the network space. Of course, everybody makes sure everything's loaded securely, but it provides us the opportunity to build our own use cases on top of the existing infrastructure.
Hmm. And
And
can you all?
let me
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
let me extend that too. So Ask Docs is one piece. That's if your answers in a document. That's the question and answer piece. The other one that Dan mentioned before is asking questions of data. Of course, everybody's got lots of databases. That's where a lot of the answers are at. And getting that answer via just a question is the next big challenge. And that's text. We call that, it's called text to SQL in the industry. And I'm happy to say that AT&T is number one in the world across two of the top leaderboards right now. The Bird benchmark, I think we're number one in the world. We had 3 times. And then last week, we won Spider 2.0 text to SQL leaderboard on Ask Data. So we're also best in class in the world. And that's over, Google, IBM, Alibaba, Stanford. Everybody kind of competes on that, and AT&T's number one there.
Yeah, that's going to feel really good. So, congratulations on that.
Mm.
Also, wanted to ask a little bit more. You mentioned Azure OpenAI, and I know you all have worked with Palantir as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you kind of approach some of these partnerships around AI? What were some important things that you were looking for? And if you can talk at all about why those partners specifically were important to engage with for AT&T.
Yeah. Dan, you want to start with Palantir?
Yeah, I think the relationship with Palantir, we've been working with them for a number of years, before their AI platform was launched. And our network engineers found a way to utilize the platform that allowed them to build an ontology that represented the things that we see and do in the network every day. We're able to utilize the platform to build a lot of use cases. And with the advent of their AIP platform, found additional ways to leverage Gen AI on top of it. One of the great things about a partnership like that is we can work directly with Mark and his team to connect those things back to our own secure backend, right? Which is really important. We want to ensure the safety and security of all that data. Well, the one way we can do that is by using our own internal tools, but that's helped us unlock use cases on top of use cases for that platform. It's not certainly not the only platform we use, but it is one where we found an exciting amount of things to do with the use cases and applications we've already built on top of Foundry, which we call Deep at AT&T. It's the data engineering enterprise platform, which really makes it approachable for all sorts of users across AT&T.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean it's they were a little bit one of the first, I think, on the AI side with the AIP. So they kind of and we hooked them up. Of course, everything flows through Ask AT&T. So when you're answering questions and getting access to large language models, they're all tied in together securely as well. But of course, we have Databricks and Snowflake, but it's really the best tool for the job. Just happens to be lots of some of the data for the use cases that Dan mentioned are over there. The other thing that's nice about it is it's pretty versatile for both the business user, the analyst, and the hardcore data engineering as well. So all of them come together, and now they get access to AI there as well.
Mm-hmm. Is it, and you mentioned those different groups, is it just user friendliness? Like, what are some of the advantages of using it across so many different teams?
I think there's a couple of really distinct advantages for use across teams. The first one is it does provide a low code, sort of no code environment for people to go build, their own mini use cases or applications in. So with those abilities, it's very quickly to go from idea to implementation, and does it in a way that is pretty user friendly. The other piece to that is with we talk about a digital twin and Palantir talks about ontology, but we really think of those as concepts about AT&T that the people who work in the business have defined and developed. So if they understand what a wire center is, a place where we provide service, or if they understand what a living unit is, one of the homes, or a pole, for example, Those definitions about the data have been codified in the language that we talk about, and it makes it really easy for somebody who's not familiar with the data itself to go use that concept and go build something from it. So it takes a lot of the friction out between data and the user.
Yeah, they have nice flow. I think they call it contour, Dan. It's almost that's their point and click. It's
Mhm.
almost like I call it pivot table on steroids, right? So you kind
Yes.
of you build a workflow and you kind of go from this stage to that page and everything is point and click. So that unlocks a lot of people, and it's got I call it the action manager. I don't know what Palantir calls it, but it's after you've done something, you want to take some action. So it'll kind of go out to people, and then they click on it, they pop back in the tool, and they log their answer or their opinion there. So it's got that kind of
Yeah.
closed loop thing, which is kind of nice as
Okay.
well.
And we build a lot of workflows like that on the network side where I might have to take action on a particular piece of work. I can take that action, log that I've taken it within the platform, and it informs my team that I've done my job, and they
Mhm.
can go do their next step.
Mhm.
So the cat not only does it closes the loop on those activities, which allows us to be a lot faster in execution.
Mhm. In some implementations of AI, I've seen where you can, the AI will show its steps and maybe send you an email with those steps so that you can double check the work. Are there any of those kind of safeguards in place with AT&T's use of Gen AI as well?
Yeah, I think you naturally see that. Of course, the big thing this year is agents, right? So you can't go to a Gen AI talk without talking about agents. And when we say agent in this case, what we mean is these digital workers or digital coworkers, right? So the automated ones that are taking actions and they explain their thoughts. That's typically how they explain it, right? So you see the agent thinking about something, and this is what they're going to do. So they show their reasoning through it. So we see that, and that's how we like to see whether they're accomplishing the task. And these agents, you put them into a workflow, right? So it's the same workflows we've had for years with automation. It's now that the bots or these agents now they can talk, right? So now you can see their thoughts and you can see how they're taking the next action. So we look at all those and we have those kind of logged into a different platform, Arise, for in our case, so you could see the agents and what they're doing, and you could look. Sometimes they get in a bit of a loop and a debate with each other. If you have two agents talking to each other, they're like, "No, I think it's good. No, you need to go do this." So it's kind of interesting to see what they're doing. And then you can optimize it because those, if you're hooked up to one of the models, that costs you tokens, which costs you something there too. So that helps you optimize it as well.
Yeah, I'd add that, some of these tools have the developer console where you can look behind the scenes as you're working through a problem and understand how it's approaching the answering of that problem, which, you can quickly, change and pivot and make sure you're refining the prompts that you're using or, you're successfully close out and move on to the next step. But, there are some of those tools out there that allow you to do that along the way.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely helpful to see your work, and that's pretty funny, Mark, that they get into arguments with each other about who's right.
Yeah, it's
Sound like
also
real
funny at the
coworkers.
it's also funny at the end. I know we had a an agent workflow that was to write blog posts, and we had a writer agent and we had a critic agent, and you would see them debating back and forth. But at the end, they would be thanking each other. Oh, you did a great job. Thank you for their comments. Like, wait a minute, you guys are like spending tokens. I don't want you to do that.
Right.
You have to kind of monitor that too.
That's funny. Yeah, you don't need to be that polite. um, Also wanted to circle back a little bit to the security discussion. You mentioned ask AT&T internally, and then so how do you were there challenges in ensuring that that was a secure AI?
I think we launched fairly early. I think we did every single use case. We have a governance review, which
Mhm.
Dan knows. So we have privacy, legal, and CSO, the security office, review them. So that's part of every single one to make sure. I think when we first we stood up Ask AT&T. We went through that as well, just to set up the basic endpoint. So we did that in the beginning, but it's part of every use case. Now the other one, of course, is finance. So everything we do, both Dan and I, we do something. It's all ROI based, right? So we have to kind of prove that it's beneficial to the business, and we try to shoot for at least 2x ROI in year, and I believe we've done that the first year. So all that's good, and this is real savings too. So this is reviewed by the CFOs. So it's not cost avoidance or productivity, which are still good, but these are either real savings or revenue that they count there too.
Yeah, Mark, to your point, as we go through governance and we identify the benefits or savings that might come with a use case, it's not just the initial identification, right? We're following back up with the teams throughout the year, and verifying and making sure that they've launched the things that they said that they were going to launch, and that if they are realizing the benefits, we're reporting them back to finance so finance can track them as well. So it's important that we not only go do these things and try them out, but if we're getting actual impact, we're finding operational savings or capital savings or driving new revenue, we're capturing those results, and we're making sure we drive them back to the overall Gen AI program.
And anything you can add as well in terms of how you're using AI to further automate the network, create more, expanding on creating more efficiency for AT&T, but also for your customers as well.
Yeah, I think on the network side, we're finding a lot of different use cases. Some of the early ones include, like ticketing and alarm correlation, where we give, tens of thousands of alarms on the network every day that tell us something about what's going on. There's a there's a outage, there's a power outage, there's a radio down, there's something that's happening. And often downstream, we may not know that there's an upstream problem, or we may have a hard time identifying it. It allows us to bring all these things together and do things like prevent truck rolls. Why send out two trucks for one issue when we can wait and so only send out one? We are finding those opportunities to save real dollars by using these technologies. And
Mhm.
that's just one, but there are multiple different ones out there. Call Before You Dig is probably another great example, Mark, where we can do things to help prevent the actual spend of dollars.
Mm. I mean, just think of it. Fixing things faster helps the customer. Fixing things before they notice it, they have to call, also helps them, right? So the AI helps there, and even on customer care, I think I mentioned it before. Getting the answer to your question faster, our agents get their answers 33% faster now, what we measured roughly. So that helps also. And then the chat bot, they can get the answer without kind of reaching out as well. All those things are really good. And then the one that we haven't really mentioned is we're also finding additional ways to help stop fraud, which also helps everybody.
Mhm. And can you, Dan, you mentioned Call Before You Dig. Can you tell me a little bit more, Dan or Mark, how does that work with AI? How does that, because I mean, I'm familiar with calling the number, but what's the AI use case there?
I'll let Mark get into the technical details, but really what it does is it helps us predict whether or not we have AT&T facilities in an area. And if we don't have those facilities, we can avoid, sending thing or avoid a ticket to go out there and actually survey for it.
Yeah. I pulled up, I was getting my notes from this. So what is Call Before You Dig? So believe it or not, when somebody wants to dig and they're a company, they have to call. They call 811. We call
Mhm.
911 for emergency. They call 811. I want to dig here. And that 811 routes to us as providers. And what they're looking for is, can I dig here, or are there any wires buried? So it could be our fiber wires, right? And we get 20 million of those calls per year.
Wow.
Now, the way that we save money is if they call us and we can identify that we don't really have any wires there that you need to be worried about, we don't have to go out there. Now, if we have to go out there, we have to go out there, and you've probably seen in your neighborhood or something the spray can spraying and marking wires. That's what we
Mhm.
have to go out and do. here's where our wires are, so you don't dig them and then you have an outage, right? So we use AI to basically understand, do we have any wires in the area where you're trying to dig? So we, in this, this is one of the Palantir use case. Well, so we'll get the call, we'll kind of geolocate it, we'll kind of understand what's in the area, and the more precise we can understand exactly where you're going to dig, the better. The more that we can avoid having to go out there. But we basically marry, and sometimes we use computer vision to understand exactly. So we take that, and we marry it up with where we have wire, and then we kind of figure out and try to avoid the ones that there's not an overlap. That's kind
Mhm.
of what we do, and we're getting smarter and smarter on that. We used to have, like, we had a general square of area, but now we're getting more precise. We can even look within the square, and then sometimes we may have wires there, but they don't have any traffic on them anymore. People have moved off of copper, and now they're on fiber. So then we say, okay, go ahead and dig. It doesn't matter. The coppers are there, so you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
So we're getting smarter and smarter, and we're avoiding tons of money. And the other thing that's good for the customer too, if we can get back to you faster, then they can go dig and get the job done, and it makes those other customers happy too.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely helpful when that can speed up either construction or, you mentioned there's also residential use cases where people need to call before they just start, probably I imagine in the springtime too, people wanting to start planting things and who knows. Um, yeah, so I think just to wrap up, were there any other AI use cases that you're excited about, or what's next for AT&T in terms of your approach to Gen AI and all the good things that we've talked about here today?
Hmm. I got a few favorites, but Dan, I don't know if you have any to start or.
Um, what I'm what I'm really most excited about is watching everybody realize that they too have a Gen AI use case. Because we went out, after the platform was launched and there was an initial excitement, you've got the early adopters that take a look and go, I can solve this problem this way. It's going to help me out a lot. But we always have stragglers behind. And what we're really beginning to see is people see what's happened, they see the use cases that have been launched, and they go, the light bulb comes on. They go, I can use this too. I can go affect change in my part of the business or in my organization, and that's really what's spurring on a lot of work right now. Is oh, I can go use that thing that Dan built, and I'm going to go use it in my organization this way. And we're helping those teams pull that along. So I can't say it's any one use case. What I really love to see is the continued excitement around the technology, and that's a whole lot of fun.
So I'll kind of build on that, and then I got a favorite use case just of my own too. So this whole thing of I got one of those, or I can use that thing. That's the reuse, and I think the agents take that to the next level. So you kind of build these things. They call them skills or tools, and that's what the agents have access to. So if I build a really cool thing, like I would even put Ask Data as a skill or tool, then other people can do it. They hook it up to their database or their tables or whatever. They can ask questions of it. So that's cool. And I think that unlocking people to build stuff themselves, self-service, that's what these agents are doing now. And whether it's in Palantir or it's a drag and drop type of thing, or some of the other platforms that are enabling that helps, that unlocks everybody. And everybody's looking at what else can I do? Because everybody sees that, to be effective, you need to kind of take AI in for your job as well, as your own co-pilot. So you can do your own stuff too. I would say now, if I go to my favorite use case, I come from the network side in the past as well, and the wireless network is the one that I started with, and I see agents, these AI agents or these digital coworkers, solving some of those problems too. So when somebody has an issue, whether it's low throughput or drop calls or block calls, there's many different things that could be. It could be an outage, could be an antenna that's tilted, could be a parameter change, could be a transport issue. These agents can reason through all those things to think about those things smarter. So I think those that's kind of a fun use case to see that and do it in a standardized way. But it's really anywhere you kind of, it's almost one of those things that no matter where you throw the dart, there's a use case no matter what area of the company you're in. I think these agents are, workflows, and getting efficiency is the next big thing too.
Yeah, definitely helpful with the troubleshooting piece and speeding that up. And like you said earlier, even predicting things before they become an issue for the customer. So, yeah, there's so many opportunities there. Dan and Mark, thank you so much for your time. I feel like we could go on forever. We'll have to have you come on again soon. This has been really interesting, and appreciate you joining me on the podcast.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.